was walking kind of in cement, and the quicksand, but it's not like the body vibrates internally, but only, right?
Right.
And it almost felt like I became like, at times, it's hard to explain, like I became a statue. Times that I could not even, tremors and spasms, it was like literally like especially the thighs became like hard, and like Charlie horse,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
But maybe not as painful for that moment, but that kind of like you can't move, like your whole body just became. I hate using the word crippled, but that's how I felt. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
before this happened to you, first of all, let me say I'm glad you're here with us and able to share.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, because it could have gone a completely different way. I know that.
Yeah.
So what was your adjustment like? Because I think for a lot of people, I was I was born with cerebral palsy. So I've had my disability since I was born. So I was telling people in the first episode, I have kind of a unique perspective in that I don't know any different. This has always been what it is for me. But I can imagine for somebody in your shoes, I think, and I've talked to other people about this as well, when you're going along and you don't have any sort of disability or you're not living with one, and then you have something like you did, where, there something just sort of traumatic happens and things change, and now you've got to adjust being a person with a disability in this community that you haven't really been in before. That adjustment can be very difficult. Can you talk a little bit about that adjustment and what surprised you about it?
Oh, well, absolutely. Everything surprised me about it. Like how people treated me, how I had to, like, hide. Like I hid from the world.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I was embarrassed. Then I was judged, right? Like, well, what do you mean you're in pain? What do you mean you're shaking? What do you mean you can't go out? Well, I can't go out because first of all, I didn't want to be embarrassed, and then I didn't want to embarrass anyone else.
And also trying to explain to other people who don't have it is very difficult.
That's right. And it's like, well, just take a pill. Well, yeah, I'm on Vicodin, Norco, Oxycontin.
Right, and then they're mad because they think you're taking too many pills. Yeah.
And, epidural, hip injection, and things like that. And it was just really, really just hard to explain people. And something, the biggest thing there was, I realized how I lived and how I thought about all of this.
Right.
What I realized is until you walk in somebody's shoes, you can't. We don't understand.
Right. We can try to empathize as much as possible, but and that's part of the reason I wanted to do this podcast too, was because I felt like it's not even just my disability that's not being representative. There's so many different disabilities, and with me, my disability, because I'm in a wheelchair, you can see it, where as with other people, that you wouldn't be able to see it. It doesn't mean it's not there.
And what I've learned is about that disability that is not being seen. It's not silent. There's another word. There's actually a specific word to it.
Right.
I can't think of it right now. It was on the tip of my tongue, and I looked fine from outside, right?
Right.
But you could not tell. I could not write down that. Oh, I just took a Vicodin. I just took Tramadol. I just took a muscle spasm medicine. I just put CBD on. Just had an epidural, right? So it made me aware of other people. I mean, I'm always sympathetic, but even more sympathetic. And losing the freedom of able to walk, able to do things for myself. My daughter had to help me get dressed, wash me, take care of me. And, I did go to work, but it was very difficult. I lost 70% of my business. So
oh, wow.
When I was so healthy, I didn't even think about my health that much. Like, I was healthy, but until my freedom of walking was taken away, and I was like, oh my God, like, your world becomes really, really different.
Right.
And you see the world really different. And 4 years ago, going on 5 years, I was done. Like my mindset is really strong. I am very positive person. I've been through a lot, but I could not see myself living like this. Like I could not see myself shaking and in spasms and not be able to dance and move and hide. You know, it became a pity party, right?
And I think too, and I love watching I watch your videos when you post those. I love your videos of you dancing, and
Thank you.
I'm so happy that you've gotten back to that. But I do want to circle back for just a second and talk a little bit about, if you don't mind,
Sure.
your daughter, because I've talked about my family on here a couple of times, and you'll get to meet them, the more that we do this podcast. But
Sure.
people don't realize when something like this happens. I think especially more so in your case where, you didn't have a disability and now all of this stuff is changing. It really affects the whole family. And
Oh, 100% affects the whole family.
right. So can you talk a little bit about what, because your daughter was your caretaker. Can you talk a little bit about maybe what she experienced and how it's been positive or negative for you guys?
So she was 11.
Okay.
We only just kind of speak a little bit more about it because we had to process all of that, right? Like we lived in that, uh, flight and fight mode for 5 years.
Sure.
And, I hid a lot of my pain from her. I couldn't hid the shaking, right?
Right.
But I could hide my body was on fire. I couldn't feel my feet. And not just from her, from my parents. I didn't go to my parents' house a lot because I didn't want to see them being upset and feeling sad and feeling hopeless that I was shaking. If they see me shaking like that, I look like I had a seizure, and I didn't want to create that stress for them. So I missed out on 5 years almost of quality of time with my family. Right, my daughter became really, a beautiful person from that. From this really horrible situation, she learned a lot of kindness and caringness on a deeper level, and not taking anything for granted, being more aware of your surroundings and people that live differently, right?
What a
Yeah.
beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, I already all of that, but I've learned it. I learned to appreciate people. And again, I like to say inconvenience because none of us are disabled. We're just all unique self. And actually, my daughter and I realized that we have learned new words, new terminology, and what it means, and how that particular word stereotypes somebody. I mean, this genius in wheelchair. You're not disabled. You are just meant to be in this body, right?
Right.
And this is your gift to God. And what I realized, my journey through this car accident, I felt like I was buried, but I was planted, right? So now I have a voice to relate to a completely different community and let them know that you're special in your own unique way. I mean, I can only express how I feel and what I felt and where I am now. I mean, my situation, gratefully, I got my life back, right?
Right.
And my friend that was diagnosed with MS, she changed my life because 4 years ago, I actually gave up on my faith, on my strength, of being optimistic. And I said, God, I'm done. You don't hear me. I'm over it. Take me away, but I'm a little bit crazy, as you can see in my video. I gave God another option, and I said, please, I'm ready. I made peace to go, but please send me a miracle. No, and I wrote it out. I said, drug-free, non-invasive, no chemicals, no side effects, affordable, because people that are live with inconvenience and chronic pain, invisible illness. That's what it's called, invisible illness.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's called. Invisible can't afford a lot, right? We spend hundreds and thousands of dollars of all of these things. My credit card was $15,000 in 5 years, and none of the things work. That if it works for me, I will share it with the masses. I will give hope in the most darkest places. And God sent me this neurological wearable technology. If you've been following me for a little bit, I talk about the socks.
Right.
And so what they did was changed my life. What they did is put my brain into homeostasis, balance.
Okay.
And that's what became my mission, my purpose, and passion. That got me out of bed, and that gets me out of bed every single day because there's over 50 million people live in chronic pain. And I mean, and another 50 million with all kinds of inconvenience. So this technology helps every single person. It's that what inconvenience you have, it improves your life.
And I think too, I think what you said is really powerful in that I think, and one thing we have to realize too is, and I think you just touched on it, just because when you have a disability, especially, or in it, in my case, I don't mind calling it a disability, but,
okay, that's good.
Yeah,
to know.
Yeah, but, for you, with these invisible things that are happening, with the different types of treatment plans, it's not a one size fits all approach. And I fell under that as well. And I think it's important in the medical community for people to realize just because something works for me, that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. And so I think that's what you were talking about is finding those alternatives, and it may take a while to get there. And it seems like you found something that could really help. And I think it's our job to embrace what the other person is doing. Just because it's not something you would do, doesn't mean it's going to not work for me. So I really respect that you found this treatment plan that works.
And it's not even a treatment plan. I changed my socks, right?
Right.
We wear socks anyway. And the best part about it, that this technology has helped 7.5 million people. And we have amazing 53,000 testimonies, almost 54 from my things. My girlfriend, my best friend, MS, to Parkinson, MS, and chronic regional pain syndrome, and the issues that you are living with. It helps everyone in their own optimized wellness space, right? We have people that have cerebral palsy. We have people that brain injuries, right? They have all kinds of things, and their life has improved.
That's so good.
I would
back up just a little bit because I do think it's important to cover. Can you go into what, and I have been blessed in the sense that I've had some bad medical experiences, but I've also had good ones as well.
Yes.
Now, I know that wasn't your experience necessarily. You had a very difficult time, and I know you've touched on that. I read a little bit about that, but can you, for the listeners that maybe haven't, can you explain what your experience with the medical field was like and the experiences that you had there?
Yes, it was really frustrating because they didn't believe. I felt like I was a bag of potatoes from one side to another, and they really because first of all, they couldn't understand, especially when the shaking and the spasms started, right?
Right.
And what I realized that doctors are really taught by the book.
Right.
Not anything outside the book. I would have to tell, well, I know in the book it says this, but I have a very special situation, as you tell me.
Right.
We look at, beyond the pages, out of the box thinking, and it was very difficult. I saw top doctors, top neurologists, top muscle movement specialists, the physical therapists, and they're like, oh, it's PTSD. Yeah, well, of course, I know it's PTSD.
Yeah, thank you for telling me that. I got it.
Thank you for telling me. Yes, I know I have anxiety. Yes, I know I'm anxious. Yes,
and I wonder why.
I know all of those things. And I would get to the emergency room, and I am there shaking like a leaf for 3-4 hours,
Mm-hmm.
And this 30 years old comes in and says, oh, honey, relax, take a breath. I'm like, my feet are on fire. You're doing this stupid neurological test, touch your nose. My feet are on fire. I said, my nose is you don't know what stress is. You open it up to be my child. And I'm they're doing all this test. And I'm like, my hip is about to fill off. It's on fire. Every time I move, and I'm like, they give me all this movement, especially when they did those movements when I was shaking. And I'm like, well, did you see it just triggered this whole entire spasm? And they're like, take a big breath.
I remember I had an experience. My mom is a nurse, thank God. And she's a very good but I remember one time I had to go to the ER for something, and I can't walk at all. And I told them that, and I said I'm not gonna. And then the lady was like, "Well, we're gonna need you to get up from one bed and move to the other."
Yes.
And I'm like, "I
Yes.
can't." And
I
she,
know.
and she says, "Well, why not?" I said, "Well, I have cerebral palsy." And she said, "Well, what does that have to do with anything?"
Oh, yeah.
And my mom got there and was like, "Well," and she's like, "Well, some people with cerebral palsy can walk." And I'm like, "Right, you're correct. They can, but I am not one of those people."
Oh, so can you stand on your feet?
A little
No.
bit, not a lot. No.
Okay.
But
Well, okay.
yeah, my poor mother was just like, some people with cerebral palsy can certainly walk.
Yeah.
And you know that, but I am not one of those. And the
Yeah.
nurse was
Well,
just not understanding, and I was like, why are they not taught about this at all? Like,
well, because they don't understand, and that was the biggest problem. Because they did MRI, they did EEG, they did they took this like 7, 8 inches needle and put it into my nerve, and none of that showed anything. When they did my EEG and I shook for 45 minutes. But what I've learned through our technology and how we determine the brain is QEEG wave lanes deep, 400 speed. So they could catch the most minute, the most tiniest dysfunction in the brain.
in the brain. I read a little bit about this. Is this where they go in and they test parts of the brain to see where you're reacting and what triggers it, and then go from there?
So they put this. I'll send you my brain mapping. It's fascinating. So they put this little hat on,
Okay.
and it's just a little machine that kind of runs this. So they did it without the technology, and they did it with the technology. You can see where everything is red, and
Okay.
then it turns into green.
Okay.
Balance, and that happens in 7 seconds.
7 seconds. Okay. And
Yeah, and then
how did you come across? Was this after you had all these other doctors? How did you come across this technology that you're using?
so my best friend, the lady that has MS.
Uh huh.
She was looking for herself because the stability and the mobility kind of drops and some of the fogginess and all kinds of things with the MS, right? Because it's all neurological disbalance.
Right.
And she found it for herself, and it helped her. And she said, "Well, I mean, we've tried so many things. Let's try this." And I didn't want to hear it because, Sarah, uh, I feel it, the people that I've spoke to have shared my story in many different communities that live with chronic pain and all kinds of disabilities and inconvenience, is that we get tired of trying things that don't work, right? And so we come to a place, well, okay, this is what we have, we accept it per se, and we can handle the trauma that we're living in. But it was very difficult every single time that somebody recommended something, it didn't work. That was
Right.
more disappointing to me than anything else because I felt like, okay, there you go again. Uh, doctor said it's nothing's there for you. You're gonna have to live this way, and you're stuck in this broken body. And so she told me about it for 4 months, and I didn't want to hear about it, but she sent it to me anyway, and. I feel like, I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person, but I felt like
Right.
God challenged me in all of this because then I can be the voice for the people that kind of live like I did, right? Like
Right.
they gave up. Oh, it tears me up because it was such a struggle. Um,
Yes.
like, what if I never tried this out? And what if my girlfriend, friend, was not so like, I mean, you have to try this, right? I've helped so many people to get some sort of quality of life back. And, the journey is really difficult, right? But it's so incredible because now I can not only share, not it's not, the product is a one piece, but also more of like staying safe, right? Like don't give up hope. I know it's hard, but miracles do happen. Technology and science and medical profession, medical field improves consistently, right?
Right. And I
So
think I think what you're doing is so powerful in the sense that you're creating And that's what I'm trying to do with my podcast as well. We all have our part to play.
Yes.
And you're creating your community, even if it's somebody who doesn't necessarily use the technology. More important than that, you're creating a safe space for people to talk about if they
That's
are in
right.
pain, you know. And
Yes.
I myself, too, I don't. Anybody can come on here. You don't have to be religious to come on here, obviously. But for me, my faith is a huge part of that as well.
Yes.
And I don't, I understand, people are hurting, and I think, we all end up in the places that we're supposed to. And I think, as hard as this was, and I don't believe God intends for bad things to happen to us at all, but when
No.
these things happen, He works them for our good.
Yes, and
Absolutely.
oh, you just gave me goosebumps because I am creating a community for the people that their
Yes.
family has given up on them, or got tired of hearing their pains and aches. Their friends that disappeared. My friends disappeared, and I became all alone. And I want to be able to have people reach, and they do every single day because I
Right.
want
Yeah.
please reach out to me. I'm here for you. I get it. I understand. I want to be the shoulder for you. I want to give you hope. I want to do, this and this for you. You can't afford the socks. Here's the product, and through that, it actually, what I realized, the veteran community suffers tremendously with pain and
Yes.
anxiety
Yes.
and PTSD. So I linked arms with some incredible, uh, people and nonprofit organizations that help disabled veterans and veterans that in need, and we put this product on them for free and help them kind of find themselves again. So the door that I thought was, I thought that I'm like literally buried in the darkness. I have a voice to change lives and in many different ways. And so, when I see things that I on Facebook and people looking for podcasts, and I'm like, I want to be a voice in many different ways of hope, of an option, of a drug-free product, a support system to say, I am here, you're not alone, I know how you feel, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Together we
Right.
are stronger. That's one of
Right.
my sayings. Together is we are stronger. And I've also learned that our disabilities, inconvenience, and our struggle becomes somebody else's state. So we must share. We must share
Yes.
the why me, and then we must share why not me.
Right. Well, it was just like when I started this podcast, it was because I didn't see anybody. I didn't see a lot. I shouldn't say anybody, but I didn't see a lot of positive representation, for people with disabilities. And if I did, they weren't covering all of it, and I knew that there were, just like you were talking about, there were people that didn't had things that they didn't consider disabilities, but that were still
Yeah,
struggles that needed to be talked about.
yeah,
And also, it was the people that I think we talked about this in the last couple podcasts, and I know this is something that you've talked about on your page. You see movies and you see things like this, and you see representation for people going through these things, and they're great at representing them in movies or whatever, but almost never a person. It's almost never a person that has actually had that disability. It's somebody playing somebody instead of getting
yeah. Oh my
somebody.
God.
Yes.
My daughter and I talked about it yesterday or the day before about it, how that needs to stop, right? Like
Right.
that needs to stop because everything and anything is possible, right?
Right.
And people should be playing roles that they actually live in.
Yeah. I remember, there were a couple films that were great films about people with disabilities, and the actors did a great job, but I was like, I
Yeah.
know there's got to be a disabled person out there that can actually play that role.
And it reminds me, it's a little bit backwards, but it's similar story, Noise. Did you
Yes.
hear that? I was like, I mean, he got a little bit of beef for that, but it was like me, right? And unfortunately, we had different results. He wasn't deaf, right?
Right.
And then he became deaf. So, my daughter and I had a really big discussion about, well, how would a deaf person play that role? Because if they were not ever not deaf,
Right.
they don't. understand that part of it. And for me, it was opposite. I was never disabled. I never had inconvenience. And then I had this huge life changing one, right? So it's
Right.
just a different perspective. And I think all of that needs to be visualized. And I love it. And I love what you're doing. I hope we can partner up and give different perspective. And I want to support you in many ways. I hope
Oh.
it's a beautiful friendship to really, give
Yes.
a voice to many.
Yes, I'm really looking forward to it. I did want to ask you
Yes.
just a couple things. So you mentioned going back to, when the accident first happened,
Yeah.
and you cover what you want to estimate how people will fall away, especially when something so dramatic
Oh,
happens.
sure.
So what was your experience like with that? What can you let us in on that a little bit?
Absolutely. Sadness, hopelessness, betrayal. Um, I just felt like, oh my God, like empty, right? Like anger towards that because some of these people that walked away from me, I've held their hand through such difficult times. And also, I felt a little bit used. I am a hairdresser, and a lot of my friends, I did their hair for free. And I felt like, now that I need you, and it's very difficult for me to ask for help.
Right.
And here I am asking for help, and you are not there for me. It really hurt me.
Right.
And also, what hurt me was that people said, "Oh, anytime I don't drive." This was my second car accident. My first one was 20 years prior to it, and that's a whole other podcast. That was a different traumatic experience for me, and I didn't drive. And so
Right.
they said, "No problem. Just pick up the phone, Irene, and I'll be there." Nobody was there. Nobody called me back, and I actually had a really close friend that I really like held her hand again through a very difficult time. She said, "Look, I can't be around you when you're like this."
Oh
I'm
my
like,
goodness.
"What?" I'm like, "What?" So, you retreat, right? You become
Right.
more, feeling like even more alone, right? Here you are. Um, I never do anything to get anything in return. I give from my heart. My father always said, "Give because you want to, not because you're waiting for thank you or applause or medal. Do
I
it
love
because
that.
do it because it moves you, because it's the right thing to do." And that's how I kind of lived my life. So there was no expectations, but there was disappointment.
Right. Right. And I'm only asking this because we don't have a lot of experience with this where I'm from. You live in California, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm in Iowa, and I know, like for a lot of people in Iowa, the CBD oil, that's just becoming something that people are using. I've never used it, but I do know that other people have. Can you talk a little bit about? Because I don't think we know a lot about that here. Can you talk a little bit about what you know about it and if it helped you or if it is something that you...
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you're fine. Go.
Okay, I have a journey with CBD. So, I heard about it. I did some research. I found it to be very fascinating. It so many amazing testimonies. So I began very slowly. Well, I became slowly with it, but had a terrible reaction to a candy because I don't smoke it, right?
Right.
And I wanted to do edibles that only was CBD. So I guess that candy that I purchased wasn't very CBD, was some other things in it. So I was a little high. I was so high that I had to go to emergency room. That was my first time ever anything like that.
Oh
So there's
no.
a very funny story about it, and that was before I even started shaking. Just the chronic pain and everything I was doing wasn't helping. And who wants to have life on opiums, right?
Right,
And that's
exactly. Yes.
so I had this candy and hallucination and all 9 yards. Days to come down. So I have to share that funny story before I go into any more of it. So I said, okay, this is not for me. I'm not doing this. And then I watched a documentary on this family that grew CBD, and they were focusing on kids with
Uh,
epilepsy and all different autism. Spider Web, I think, or Charles Web. That's
okay.
what it called. It did actual documentary.
Okay.
Charles Webb. And so I was very fascinated, and they explained the different flowers and how it's done, and clean and not clean, and and I said, well, if it's safe for children, I should try it again, right? But
Right.
then, by then, I was already shaking. So I have to be honest. I think it's a great product, but it didn't do much for me.
Okay. Okay. And that's,
It
yeah, and it's not something that I've tried or a lot of people that I know have tried. I was just curious because I don't think it's something we know a lot about here. Um,
it's a great, and I highly recommend it to try, because because there's so many strands of it, right? So I started with only CBD, and I started with the least expensive one, and by the time I was done, I was paying $200-300 a month because I needed so much just for the
so much of it.
pain, right?
Okay.
It didn't do much for the shaking, so it was too expensive. And what my socks did for me, because everything, it's neurological, right? So
Sure.
you don't, and
Yeah.
what I learned, that if you can't put that brain in homeostasis, that balance your neurological system,
It's not going to matter.
it's not going to matter. So all of the issues come from the brain
Okay.
being connected. So I, again, highly recommend it. Everybody should try it.
But it might not
Because it
work.
was,
Right.
I mean, because there's different strands and different companies. The more pure it gets, the more expensive it gets. But also, when you start mixing it with THC, it becomes more expensive, and it does work a little bit better, because that other part of it puts the brain in a different dimension.
I want to cover just a couple things before we say goodbye. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. I was so excited to talk to you. Um,
Thank you for giving me opportunity. This is what I.
you did touch on one area that I wanted to go back to because I think it's so important, and that's the area of our veterans. Um,
Yes.
and I think for me, a lot of veterans come back with PTSD. They come back with injuries they haven't had before. So that's a big part of the
Yes.
community that I hope to speak to somebody. And if you're out there and you're listening and you want your story told, I'm definitely here, and I've got some people lined up for interviews. But what are you seeing when you go into these veterans communities, and what can we do to help that aren't out there right now?
So, oh, wow, there's so much not out there, and I have immersed myself in it with my partner. We right now everything is. We're meeting all the people on Zooms and kind of like that.
Okay.
Next year, I'm planning to travel. My partner just moved to Virginia, and she's on the ground right now. I mean, financial support is number one. We actually partner up with Brian Gibson, Project Die Hard.
Okay.
He was donated a beautiful facility that needs to be rebuilt. So we're raising funds. So that homeless veteran, that veteran wheelchair, that veteran that deals with PTSD can come there for 1 year, free, to put their lives together. Well, number one issue is the suicide, right?
Right.
22
Yes.
veterans die by suicide. And when I began using my technology, and I realized that it not only helped me with my chronic pain, but also helped me with my anxiety and anxiousness and PTSD, I said, this technology needs to be on every single veteran. And I went knocking on doors, as I wanted to bring it to a chronic pain community and everybody else. And it was hard to get through, because, too good to be true, right? People will, and men are not easy to talk to about their feelings and emotions and pain, right?
No.
So,
Yeah.
so what can we do is bring awareness. There's products that do work. The support system that we have for you, that we are stronger together. And if I didn't realize we're actually on the podcast,
Yeah.
if there's veterans that are struggling with any of this, please get in touch with me. Your product will be donated, and we will help you live life with less anxiety, anxiousness, and PTSD, and more
Yes.
joy and happiness. And we need you. The more veterans have a product, the more testimonies we will have, and the more lives we can change.
And I think
So the
it's really important. I think sorry for interrupting. I think it's just really important. That is an aspect of our community for the people that have given the biggest sacrifice.
That's right.
Yes, that have just been completely overlooked by this. And I hope, between you and me and other people, we are able to give them a platform to be able to say what they've experienced. And I think you touch on a good thing too, with especially within the community that you and I are in, no matter what your disability is or your invisible, your inconvenience, whatever you want to call it. The deaths by suicide has become an epidemic, and partly because we don't talk about it enough. And that is something going forward that, I think we can really partner with, because there needs to be support systems out there, but specifically for veterans. Those are a special group there that really, death by suicide is just something that has really overtaken that community, and it's our job to pitch in and help as much as we can.
Absolutely. There's 22 veterans die every day. And Brian, we partnered with Brian Gibson. He's the, Project Die Hard. That's his baby.
Okay.
His story is proud. He put a gun in his mouth, right? And
Right.
I could relate so much to it, because 4 years ago I wanted to die. Like, I had pills, and I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore.
Right.
Right. And it's hard. It's hard when you're alone. So I want to have I want to be support for all, no matter how it comes, mental, physically, emotionally. With my crazy socks, I am here for them.
Yes. Well, your dance videos definitely bring me a lot of joy, so keep those up.
Oh,
I love those.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. And those dancing videos, there's a mission behind. There's a
Sure.
purpose behind. I dance because I can now. I dance because God answered my prayers. Yes, I lost my faith, but He still got me. So I also want to. The dancing has that purpose behind it, right?
Yes, everything has a purpose. Yeah.
Everything is possible. Don't give up.
Yeah.
You will figure out how to live your best life in whatever level you are in, and it's all going to be okay. We all have something to share. We're all inspiration to each other, and I can't say it enough. Together we are stronger. So our story matters, and that's what I learned from this experience, that our story matters. And I know you said you want to go, but I think it's really important to say this. A lot of people feel like, why me? And like, why am I in this dark moment? And I was part of an incredible challenge last year with Peter Vargas Rise Up Challenge. And there was a pastor there, and he said, um, your pain is your lesson. God doesn't give it to you to make you hurt. God gives you to create a testimony and then share it.
Right.
So he said, don't waste your pain. Make it an inspiration for others. And that really touched my heart. And it touched my soul. It made me realize that, yes, absolutely, we have, every story matters, right?
Right.
And your pain is a message for someone else. Your pain is strength. And when I dance or when I finish my lives, I always tell people, wherever you are is just a moment. If it's a beautiful moment, share it. And if it's not a beautiful moment, share that too, because really more people can relate to the pain, to the joy. And they need to see both the darkest moment of your life and the brightest moment, because it brought you to here, right? And giving up is not an option. Baby steps better than no steps. And the glass may be feeling empty, but it's also refillable.
Yeah.
This technology needs to be on every single veteran, and I want knocking on doors, as I wanted to bring it to chronic pain community and everybody else. And it was hard to get through because, too good to be true, right? People will, and men are not easy to talk to about their feelings and emotions and pain, right?
No, yeah.
So what can we do is bring awareness. There's products that you work, the support system that we have for you, that we are stronger together. And if I didn't realize we're actually on the podcast,
Yeah.
if there's veterans that are struggling with any of this, please get in touch with me. Your product will be donated, and we will help you live life with less anxiety, anxiousness, and PTSD, and more
Yes.
joy and happiness. And we need you. The more veterans have a product, the more testimonies we will have, and the more lives we can change.
And I think
So
it's really important. I think sorry for interrupting. I think it's just really important. That is an aspect of our community for the people that have given the biggest sacrifice.
that's right.
Yes, that have just been completely overlooked by this. And I hope, between you and me and other people, we are able to give them a platform to be able to say what they've experienced. And I think you touch on a good thing too, with especially within the community that you and I are in. No matter what your disability is or your invisible, your inconvenience, whatever you want to call it, the death by suicide has become an epidemic,
Yes.
and partly because we don't talk about it enough. And that is something going forward that I think we can really partner with, because there needs to be support systems out there, but specifically for veterans. Those are a special group there that really that death by suicide is just something that has really overtaken that community, and it's our job to pitch in and help as much as we can.
Absolutely. There's 22 veterans die every day. And Brian, we partnered with Brian Gibson. He is the Project Die Hard. That's his baby.
Okay.
His story is proud. He put a gun in his mouth, right? And
Right.
I could relate so much to it because 4 years ago I wanted to die. Like, I had pills, and I'm like, I cannot live like this anymore.
Right.
Right? And it's hard. It's hard when you're alone. So I want to have I want to be support for all, no matter how it comes, mental, physically, emotionally, with my crazy thoughts, whatever people need, I am here for them.
Yes. Well, your dance videos definitely bring me a lot of joy, so keep those up. I
Oh,
love those.
thank you so much. I appreciate that. And those dancing videos, there's a mission behind. There's a
Sure.
purpose behind. I dance because I can now. I dance because God answered my prayers. Yes, I lost my faith, but He still got me. So I also want to. The dancing has that purpose behind it, right?
Yes, everything has a purpose. Yeah.
Everything is possible. Don't give up.
Yeah.
You will figure it out how to live your best life in whatever level you are in, and it's all going to be okay. We all have something to share. We're all inspiration to each other, and I can't say it enough. Together, we are stronger. So our story matters, and that's what I learned from this experience, that our story matters. And I know you said you want to go, but I think it's really important to say this,
Yeah.
because a lot of people feel like, why me, and like, why am I in this dark moment? And I was part of an incredible challenge last year with Peter Vargas Rise Up Challenge, and there was a pastor there, and he said, uh, your pain is your lesson. God doesn't give it to you to make you hurt. God gives you to create a testimony and then share it.
Right.
So he said, don't waste your pain. Make it an inspiration for others. And that really touched my heart. And it touched my soul. It made me realize that, yes, absolutely, every story matters, right?
Right.
And your pain is a message for someone else. Your pain is strength. And when I dance or when I finish my lives, I always tell people, wherever you are is just a moment. If it's a beautiful moment, share it. And if it's not a beautiful moment, share that too, because really more people can relate to the pain, to the joy. And they need to see both the darkest moment of your life and the brightest moment, because it brought you to here, right? And giving up is not an option. Baby steps
No.
better than no steps. And the glass may be feeling empty, but it's also refillable.
Yeah.